Hey guys, it's Jill. Welcome back to my booktube channel. In this video, I'm going to be reading Gothic Romantasy Books. In this fantasy romance reading vlog, I'm going to get started with One Dark Window. This has been quite popular for the past few years, I believe. This is known as a gothic fantasy, and let me just see what it even says on the Kindle app. So this says, for fans of Uprooted and For the Wolf comes a dark, lushly gothic fantasy about a maiden who must unleash the monster within to save her. But the monster in her head isn't the only threat lurking. And this is by Rachel Gillig, and there's 2 books. I believe it's just a duology. So I'm going to get started with this one, and I'm really excited. It's not too long, it's like 400 and some pages, and I've had it downloaded on my Kindle for a while actually, and just getting to it now. I think I originally downloaded it in like May, so it's about time that I finally get it started, and I'll give you guys an update really soon with some of my thoughts. Also, before I get too far into this video, there will be spoilers for all of the books that I read, and I'll put chapters of the different books I read in the description, so if you want to bounce around to the different books, then you can. I'm on chapter 13, 34% of the way through One Dark Window. We have our FMC, her name is Elspeth, and when she was young, I feel like around 9 or 10 years old, she was infected by this thing. I believe they call it the mist, and this usually infects people, and then these people will have like magical powers. And after Elspeth was infected, she started hearing this voice in her head that she refers to as the nightmare. And she is now 20 years old, so this nightmare has been talking to her and kind of giving her advice and just saying like random things to her for many years at this point, so she's kind of used to this. And I guess normally once people are infected, they get taken away, I think, but she was able to kind of hide the fact that she got infected and that she has this voice inside of her head. And her, I guess, magical ability is that she can see these special cards, which are the magic system of this whole world. And it's kind of a confusing system, and I'm not exactly sure how it works yet, but there are these special cards that people can gather and use. Different cards have different powers, and I guess the more cards you have, the more powerful you and your family can be. So she lives with her uncle currently. I don't know exactly what happened to her birth parents. I can't remember, maybe if they were taken away or what happened with that, but she's now 20, like I said, and she's at this kind of gathering where she meets Raven, what's his last name? Raven Yu, and he discovers that she has the ability to see these cards, and her ability is interesting because she sees the cards as they glow a certain color depending on what card it is. So Raven, who I'm assuming is going to be the MMC and the love interest of this story, him and his family are trying to convince Elspeth to go to their kind of kingdom and help them find all of these cards because they want to help cure one of their family members. Their name is Emery, and they are infected, but they also said that they could help Elspeth with her infection as well, and she ends up agreeing to this, but his family is trying to figure out a way of how to tell people why she is going to be in their kingdom. So they have come up with the ruse that Raven is going to court Elspeth. But that is where I left off, and now I'm on page 146, and I did feel like it was a little bit slow to get started, but I am happy now that she's going to go to the kingdom of the Yus, and I feel like the story will pick up from there because now we'll have the fake dating trope, which is one of my favorites, so I'm interested to see how it goes on from now. But I was slightly bored, I will say, in the first quarter of this one. So I found out that the infected people actually get executed when it's found out by the king and queen, I guess, that they're infected. But it's also weird because there's a bunch of people that work for the king that are also infected. For example, one of their top physicians is infected, Raven's infected, and he's like a chief something. So it's kind of strange, the rules that are bent for like certain people, even though it's like a bad thing apparently, this mist infection. But yeah, Raven is infected, which is something that I didn't expect to happen, and it was kind of randomly, kind of nonchalantly brought up. and he has magic abilities. His ability is that once he touches cards, the magic in those cards start to wane. So I don't even know how he uses his own cards. It's kind of not exactly described. But yeah, he is magical and infected, and Elspeth was like, why didn't you tell me? And also Elspeth's like voice inside of her head, the nightmare, he also knew that he was infected as well. So she was kind of annoyed why no one told her this, but to me it kind of made sense why he didn't tell her, because why would he trust her? He like just met her the other day. But also this has not really been super romantic. At one point Raven says something along the lines of, out of all the things I pretended to do, being with you and courting you is the easiest. And I'm like, there haven't even been any scenes, barely, where they're fake dating, which is what I love about the fake dating trope. Like, I eat up every time those scenes where they have to hold hands and like be affectionate to one another in front of people. But no, there's like none of this, so I don't even see how the relationship is developing or how he can even say that to her, because in my head when I'm reading that, I'm like, they've barely even spent that much time one-on-one together, and more importantly, for that quote to even make sense, they've barely spent much time fake dating. So I just like don't really understand how that is really romantic, and I've seen zero development so far of their relationship. You can probably sense that I'm not really loving this book, but I'm also feeling like the gothic element is not really there for me. It's honestly just reading like a normal fantasy romance to me, and I'm trying to picture like any kind of gothic-y parts, and really there hasn't been too much description of that aspect, so it's a little bit disappointing to me. And then also there was this one part where they needed this specific card, and just coincidentally she knows that the card is like at the neighbor's house. Like, how random is that she knows exactly where this card is? Meanwhile, the family has been trying to get this card for it seems like a long time. So it's just not really doing it for me, I'm going to be honest. But I do only have like, okay, I'm only like 56% of the way into this, so I still have quite a ways to go for this one. But it only says I have 2 hours and 4 minutes left of the book, so I feel like I'm just gonna push through this. But honestly, I am really close, I think, to DNFing this, because I just don't really care about what's happening. I don't feel connected to the characters, I don't feel connected to the story. I feel like randomly we'll just go from one place to another, and it's kind of confusing of what even is happening. We'll see how the last half goes, and hopefully I can get the majority of this finished tonight, and then tomorrow morning I'm thinking I'll finish it and then do my final update. I finished One Dark Window yesterday, and what ended up happening was that the king found out that Elspeth had the infection, and as a result he wants to kill her. But it's revealed that the nightmare that's inside of Elspeth is the Shepherd King, which honestly meant nothing to me when it was revealed that that was the case. I didn't know who that was, so I was kind of like, okay, but I guess because of this, Elspeth is the only one that can find the last cards that the king is looking for. And these cards are really important because they've been lost for hundreds and hundreds of years. So if she can find them with the help of the Shepherd King, then she's useful and she should not be killed. It's funny because these cards were reminding me of the Recess episode when they're playing that game. What was it called? Ajimbo was the name of it, and they were playing with these cards, and they had like the purple elephant, the blue monkey, and that was the feeling I was getting when I was reading about these cards, because they too had different colors and different objects that were on the cards. So yeah, I just thought that was a little bit funny. And I'll make this short and sweet, but overall I was pretty bored. I did not like the romance in this, and I felt like the plot wasn't very intriguing for me. I am going to leave the rating for the end though of the video for all of the books that I read in this video. But yeah, unfortunately it was not my favorite, and I probably would not recommend. But I did last night start the Wraith King on my Kindle as well. This is about the FMC. Her name is Una, and at the start of this, she's, I'm assuming, like a teenager age, and she is saved by this prince who ends up being the MMC, and his name is Gaul. And then there's a time jump 5 years into the future when Una is captured by this bad guy named Zakiel. Zakiel actually ends up being Gaul's father, and he is the current king of this place called North Gaul, and he took Una as a hostage so that her father would surrender to him. But there's a little battle of thrones because Gaul, he ends up killing his father and then taking over as king. So then at this point, Una is his captive, and he wants to use her to bear his children and the future heir. And she agrees to sign this treaty only because she knows that if she does, she will be able to save the people from her kingdom. So it is kind of like a Beauty and the Beast, loosely based off of that, it seems like. I think I'm 35% of the way through this, and so far I am really enjoying it, and I read the first part pretty quickly last night. It was definitely keeping me interested, but obviously with this kind of marriage of convenience, they are going to actually fall for each other eventually. So I'm eager to see how that plays out, but currently they are still kind of enemies, and she especially is not happy to be his captive and now his wife. So I will give you guys another update very soon though. I think this is about 420-ish pages long, so I might even be able to finish this one tonight. I finished the Wraith King last night, and this is funny because I don't know if you've seen on Book Talk, but there's this audio that's been going around for a little bit, and it's someone kind of making fun of fantasy books and very jokingly but oddly accurately describing what happens in fantasy books, and I feel like that's exactly what happened in this one. But pretty much what happens is that there's a lot of spice in this. There's still a bit of a plot as well, but I feel like the plot was just very easily resolved, and all the issues that the characters had, they were able to overcome a little bit too easily. And not that I really want them to struggle greatly, but I feel like a little bit of difficulty in finding out the next steps and how to solve the problems and the issues that they have is more so the kind of plots that I enjoy. There was also a chapter that was labeled from a traitor and their POV, but when it was finally figured out who the traitor was, I don't know why, I just didn't really care, and I felt like it fell a little bit flat for me. The FMC does say the touch her and I'll kill you line, which it really doesn't do anything for me, but I know a lot of people like that, so I thought I would mention it. Also, I was not able to figure out who the bad guy was or the traitor, and thinking back on it now, along with the problems being very easy for the characters to overcome, the plot in general was just a little bit weak. They were trying to find these texts that apparently help them cure this plague that's been going on in her kingdom, and they end up finding it. So then she's now like this magical healer type girl. So yeah, overall it wasn't really doing much for me, and I also feel like the writing was a little simple. I didn't really get the Gothic vibe with this one either, so I'm kind of feeling like authors are putting the Gothic part in their descriptions and everything, maybe just because it's like a trendy thing, not so much because they actually write about it. But I think I did like this one a little bit better than One Dark Window. I thought that it made a little bit more sense, and the romance was slightly better but still not the greatest, and was pretty much just like spice. I'm going to finish this reading vlog off with Anathema. This is by Carrie Lake, and this is quite the long book. It's like 680 pages, so I'm glad that I got the other two out of the way earlier in the week, because this one will take me definitely a few days. This is part of the Eating Woods series, it seems like, and it was released early in September, and it has pretty good reviews. It looks like 4.5 stars on Amazon reviews with almost 3,000 ratings, so fingers crossed that this one will be a good one to end this video off. But I'm going to get it started, and I'll talk to you guys really soon. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure if maybe I'm just burnt out from these Gothic fantasy romances, but I am struggling getting into this. I think I'm on page 70. Let's see, on 73, chapter 7. And I feel like so far it's just been really slow talking about the plot, introducing characters, and introducing the story in general. I'm just like, let's pick it up. I'm also feeling like the writing is a little bit too wordy for my taste, and it's just making it drag on, and it's just not interesting to me. So this one started with a map as well as like a 5-page glossary. One thing about me is I do not want to have to study before I get into a book, and I just skip that altogether. Like, I'm not going to be memorizing all of these different fantasy words to be starting the book. So I skipped over that, and they've definitely mentioned already some of the words that I'm not familiar with because they were in the glossary and I didn't read it. But I kind of feel like I'm in the opinion of, and I saw this from a TikTok, but I feel like if you are explaining everything well enough in the actual story, then you don't need a glossary. And it seems like a little bit almost lazy writing to be having a glossary, because then it's kind of an excuse to just not explain what's going on in the actual like reading book part. I don't know, that might be a little bit harsh, but I feel like that kind of turned me off from the start even. So we have the FMC. Her name is, I don't even remember. I don't even have her name written down. It just said that she was abandoned as a baby and she is taken to live with this family called the Bronwicks. And I guess the father died. One second, let's find her name. Maëlys. And the guy's name is Zivander. So we have Maëlys, and she's not happy right now because she was just told that she's going to be put into an arranged marriage, and I don't know if it's going to be with Zivander or who. It hasn't been revealed yet, but she is wanting to avoid this, and she wants to run into the woods, these like secret woods that people say are dangerous and scary and bad. She wants to run away into the woods, I believe, so that she can avoid having to marry this person that she doesn't know and that she does not want to marry. Which is pretty much all that I've grasped for the first like 75 pages. And it's dual POV, so we get Maëlys and Zivander's POVs, but I can't even tell you what's been happening with Zivander. And I feel like you guys can probably predict where I'm going with this, but I feel like I likely will DNF this. I'm going to try to push through and get to maybe like 150 pages until I decide, but it's just not doing it for me, unfortunately, at the moment. So I'm kind of leaning more towards the DNF once I hit the 150 page mark. And I don't know why lately, but I haven't been having much luck with Kindle Unlimited books. It's a little bit disappointing because I was so excited last year, or I guess that was the start of this year when I got my Kindle. I was so excited to read a bunch of books from known and unknown authors, but I feel like I have been a little bit disappointed with overall with the books that I have been reading. So with that, if you do have any suggestions of KU books, please let me know in a comment down below, because I've been on the struggle bus for a little while now with my Kindle reads. I'll continue with this though for now. Honestly, if I had more time on Spotify to listen to an audiobook, I'd probably be doing that by now, but I'm in Spotify jail, so no can do. And I'll give you guys probably my final update tomorrow or the day after. Okay guys, it's been a few days since I did the last check-in, and unfortunately very shortly after that I did end up DNFing Anathema. I just could not get into it. It was such a chore to read the next, even like finish the chapter out, honestly. So I am DNFing it for now, but maybe sometime in the future I would try out another one of her books. I know that she has another one that's pretty popular at the moment too. What was it called? I can see. Nordic Canda. I've heard other people talk about that as well. So maybe I'll try that one out sometime in the future. I don't think I'll go back to Anathema though, just because I feel like I'm not interested in the story really at all. So that's kind of a disappointment, but I will go over the ratings that I have for the books that I did finish in this video. So let's just see here. The first book I finished was One Dark Window, and I am really sad to say I'm going to give this 2 stars. It really just did not do it for me. Like I said before, the romance was practically non-existent in my opinion, and I just feel like the world building in general and everything was just not executed very well overall, which is really disappointing for me because I thought I was going to rate this 4, maybe even 5 stars just based off of the great things I've heard about it before reading it, and I was definitely let down with that one. So then for the next book, The Wraith King, I actually liked this one a little better, like I said before, but I'm going to give this one 3 stars. It is not great, but, and I would say it's mostly lust spicy driven as opposed to a real plot, but I feel like there was some type of plot. It wasn't just like spice and zero plot, it was like spice and like a little bit of plot. So I feel like I do have to give it some credit, and I did enjoy reading this one a lot more than Anathema. I did enjoy reading this one more than One Dark Window, and I thought this one was paced a lot better than One Dark Window also. And then Anathema, I'm not going to rate that one because I didn't get far into it at all. I only got to like page 80, so that one I'm just going to leave. But I guess overall, in terms of Gothic fantasy romances, maybe this is not the kind of subgenre for me, or maybe it's just the books I ended up choosing. So if you have a Gothic fantasy romance recommendation, I would love to give it a try, so comment down below if you have any favorites. But based off of this experiment for this video, I feel like the Gothic elements don't really show through with a lot of these books, even though they're labeled as like Gothic fantasy romances and they're being marketed that way as well. which I feel like I just expected a little bit more from this subgenre, and I really wanted to be thrown into this dark, kind of almost scary, exciting and gothic world, which I feel like none of these books accomplished that for me. So this video was a little bit of a fail, but if you did read any of the books mentioned, please let me know your thoughts, good or bad, in a comment down below. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more book content, and I will see you guys in a new video next week. Bye!